So we finished with this x move, we play queen e2 with the idea bishop e3. Now let's go to knight f6 move. After knight f6 we again play queen e2 with same idea, bishop e3, and in some cases we go to g5, we will see it soon where and why. After knight f6 is also possible bishop g5 move, however queen e2 is much better. I will first show you why. After bishop g5 black can play h6, bishop h4, and now play d6. The thing here, anyway, if you want to go to long castle, here we should play through queen e2 and then long castle, because queen d2 is not possible. You can pause the video if you want to find out why. The thing here is that after queen d2, black has typical tactic. Be careful about this whenever our bishop on h4. There is a tactic with knight e4 move. Suddenly our queen and bishop is hanging. So if knight e4, then simply queen h4, and if bishop d8, then knight d2, bishop c7 is not working to get intermediate pawn, because after knight b3, bishop b6 will lose the rook on a1. So queen d2 move is impossible because knight e4. So if you played bishop g5, h6, bishop h4, d6, anyway we should play queen e2. But here after castle, long castle, it will get the position that we will look. However, after queen e2 we give additional option for black here to play bishop e6. And then after queen e7, g5, black somewhere can go to long castle. So we just avoid this, giving this such a chance for black. After knight f6, we simply play queen e2. Bishop g5 was just for information. Don't make lots of trash in your head. Just remember queen e2. Now the main move here for black is castle, and after bishop g5 we get the main position which one we will look. The idea is that after castle we have no time for bishop e3. Black has d5 strong move. There is some theory, but we will not speak about it now. So after castle we will look immediately bishop g5 move. But before going to castle, where after bishop g5 there is unpleasant pin here for black, let's see what else they could do. If after queen e2 they play some move like h6, avoiding the bishop g5 move and unpleasant pin here, you play bishop e3. And after castle, along castle, black has not that d5 move. And after d6, f3, we get similar attack, but here is much stronger. Let's say somewhere black changed here. After typical our g4, h4, our attack is much stronger, because our opponent pawn is on h6, not on h7. And after h6, g4, h4, g5, where we attacked his opponent's knight and pawn, our attack with pawn on h6 is much stronger and faster. So this is even worse for black. Instead of castle, if they play d6, again bishop e3, then castle, long castle, with plan similar f3, g4, with very pleasant game. There is another way after d6, bishop e3 for black to play, instead of short castle and going to attack, here to play bishop e6. Long castle, queen e7, and trying to escape through long castle. But there is very strong move g3, as played Popov, g3, bishop g2, and I will show you his beautiful game and very important idea of this structure in the next video. With white pieces plays Russian strong grandmaster Popov Ivan against Italian grandmaster Dvirny Daniel, Scotch game, and d6 move. Bishop e3, and Dvirny is doing the plan that we discussed in the previous video. Bishop e6 with idea queen e7 and going to long castle. g3, bishop is going to g2, very comfortable, and this is very typical structure, e4 pawn against d6, and Popov is playing a very nice and illustrative game here. Bishop g2, king b8. Popov is taking b6 bishop. The thing here is, whenever the rook is not on a8, let's say here, if we take here b6, a b6, and the rook is opened. So this is almost all the time is in black's favor. However, after long castle, bishop b6 is good for us. First of all, after a b6, rook on a8 is not opened, he is on d8. Second, as you will see soon, very often we may attack these pawns here, as Popov was soon doing in this game. Bishop b6, a b6, knight d4, knight d4, rook d4, black plays h5, they want to go to h4 and make weaknesses in pawn structure of the king side of white pieces. h4, we are not letting it, rook h e8, rook h d1, bishop g4, we play f3, no reason to play bishop f3. We try to keep pieces as much as possible. We remember that when we have space advantage, we keep our pieces as much as possible. So f3, yeah, with f3 move we close the bishop on g2, but this is just temporary. f3, bishop d7 was played, queen d2, g6, f4. We are opening our bishop on g2, bishop c6. Bishop stays here in order after e5 not to make this, not to let this bishop on g2 become monster. So bishop c6, and now we should find a plan for white. Since everything is done, we gain the center, our rooks are placed very well, knight is in best position, queen d2, bishop on g2, and what next? Well, it's also not easy to find the plan for black. Probably they should still just wait here, but we are playing white, we have space advantage, and we should do something. So this is very nice position. Pause the video, and it will be very good for you if you can find the plan here for white. Well, let me know, write me if you find it, because it's incredible if you did it. I also was amazed when I saw this. Popov is doing a very strong move b4. I promise whenever I write some book, I will include this position there before a very strong move. White has advantage in center, and black never can crush the center, so we can let us to play b4 and go to the attack. The thing here is that after b5, a4, strong attack is coming, or even we cannot hurry here to play at first king b2, a4, rook goes through d1 to a1, and then b5, a5, our rook on d4 joins from a4, queen joins to d4, and suddenly from nothing, when it looks like there is positional game, it should be boring game, suddenly after b4 some strong attack is coming. In the game was rook c8, black could not avoid this attack. If they played b5, it seems it's prophylactic against a4 move. However, even here, white can play a4, and after ba4, b5, bishop d7, rook a4. White got back their pawn, and after queen d4, checkmate is coming, because after queen d4, if white avoids this queen a7 move and plays somewhere b6, then e5 will come crashing, and the monster on bishop is played. Knight is hanging, and this is not possible because rook a8 checkmate. So after b4, black cannot do anything than just stay and wait for the attack. The game was played rook c8, king b2, bishop d7. Popov played queen d3, also would be fine immediately going to a4 or b5. He plays queen d3 move. What he prepared after queen d3, he wants to play a4, a5, a6. He needs his queen from d3 to support this a5, a6 move. Dverne plays knight g4, he wants to play knight f2, rook d2. For this, rook on d2 is not staying as good as IB would like. Better would be a4, b5 and join the rook from a1. So for this reason, I was thinking that maybe a4 is stronger. However, Popov is a strong grandmaster, so he knows something that he played queen d3, knight g4, rook d2. In the game, Dverne played f5, opening this very strong bishop on g2. However, if black just seated and waited, what will do white? It's simple. We play a4, a5, a6, and its crushing attack is coming there. After f5, there is strong move e5. Here is the pin, so the e5 is not possible, just rook d7. And after e5, when this monster is opened and d6 pawn is losing, it's almost lost for black. Dverne played here bishop c6, e6, cd6, bishop c6, rook c6, knight b5 strong move, and d6 pawn is lost. Black cannot protect him. Too many pieces are attacking this pawn. In the game was played queen e3, changing the queens, but after rook d6, queen d3, rook to d3, black are pawn down, and also has problems here with their pawns and with their king, and soon they lost. A very nice and illustrative game by a strong Russian grandmaster Ivan Popov. His b4 move, keep in mind this move, it's very strong idea. It will be great if I see you somewhere in your games you use this, it will be amazing. So let's continue our journey with this knight f6 move. So after knight f6, queen e2, if black plays some passive move like d6, we play bishop e3 with long castle, and we get advantage. Now let's move to the main line. After queen e2, black plays castle. As I mentioned already in the previous video, now bishop e3 is not so good because black has d5 strong move. So after castle, there is another problem for black, is this bishop g5 very unpleasant pin. After bishop g5, black has two moves, h6 and knight d4. They have not time for moves like a5, because after a5, knight d5, this pin very unpleasant, and after knight f6, the position of black crashes. So h6 after bishop g5 is the main line, and there is also knight d4 move. We will look them one by one. This pin is very unpleasant for black, and they should solve it somehow. As I said already, a5 is not possible because after knight d5, this pin is horrible for black. So there are two ways to solve it. First is h6, bishop h4, then a5. I will show you in next video why not knight d5. You play here a4 and then knight d4, and immediately knight d4 move. What's the idea of this knight d4 move? After knight d4, bishop d4 comes to help this pin to this queen, and also bishop on d4 attacks here on c3, very unpleasant. If now after bishop d4 we play something like queen d2, protecting here, black has again the same tactic, bishop c3, queen c3, and knight e4. Now g5 is hanging and queen is hanging. After bishop d8, knight c3. If we take the knight, just rook d8 and we are pawn down and with horrible pawn structure. And if we take the pawn on c7, it looks like okay, we have two bishops and black has very bad structure, but there is rook e8 check. This is everything here. So the only move here is king d2, but then knight e4 check. Now f3 is hanging, and there is no good place for king. If king e3, then knight g3 check will be possible. The same like king e1, e2 the same, king d1, then knight f2 with check, king d3 the same. And if king c1, then knight f2, then rook e1 check is coming, and we are lost suddenly. So don't forget, guys, about these tactics. All the time is coming when when bishop on h5, h4 is not protected or on g5 not protected. Black always has this knight e4 tactic. After knight d4, bishop d4, also if we play some long castle, it's bad for us because after bishop c3, our pawn structure is crushed and our king is opened. And the bad thing here is that we have not e5 move, because black simply takes this pawn. And we cannot play queen e5 because of rook e8, and this line we lost the queen. Here is the idea of knight d4 move. But here, instead of taking knight d4, we place queen d2. Again, not playing queen d3, don't forget about this tactic. Whenever the bishop on g5 is not protected, there is something. Here is knight b3 and bishop f2. A typical tactic, king f2, knight g4 and queen g5. We are pawn down and we have bad position. After knight d4, we play queen d2, strong move. Knight b3, a b3. And here again the problem with this pin continue. Black has not bishop d4 move, so well, bishop could come and help to this queen. After queen d2, knight b3, a b3, black here plays h6, avoiding this, and now we cannot play bishop h4 because of the similar tactic, knight e4. Now h4 is hanging and queen is hanging. If knight e4, simply queen h4, and if bishop d8, knight d2. So after h6 we say, fine, we will not go to h4, we'll go to e3. Well, there is not pin anymore. But the thing here is that after bishop e3, queen e3, and so where we castle alongside, after f3, g4, where our opponent's pawn on h6, our attack is much stronger, as we know. Because after f3, g4, h4, g5, it would be much better for black if the pawn was on h7. So well, after h6 move, they avoid this pin, but it's made another problem. Sorry, not here. Knight d4, this position. After h6, they avoided this pin, but after bishop e3, they got another problem. The h6 pawn, which we will use after long castle f3, g4 during our attack. After bishop e3, queen e3, here our attack is coming, and black has two moves here. First move is d5. Now, of course, we don't take the pawn, because after rook e8, we lose material here because of this line. So after d5, we play long castle. And instead of that pin, we make another pin here ourselves. We are pinning his queen. And it's hard here for black. If rook e8, making another pin on us, and so we cannot take with pawn, but we take with knight. Now after knight d5, rook d5, we are pawn up, queen d5 don't give anything, we are just pawn up. And after knight d5, knight e4, we have f3 strong move. And now it's very hard to go somewhere to this knight. Some move like knight g5 will be met by strong tactic, knight f6. this rook is opening here. Queen f6 is not possible because of queen e8, and if j f6 and rook d8, and we simply winning. The same is after knight g3. Again, knight f6, and everything is the same. Queen f6, queen e8, and if j f6, rook d8. So after rook e8, knight d5, knight e4, f3, the only move is knight d6. But now we have strong move queen c5. Now c7 pawn again is coach game. How many times we have seen? Now c7 pawn is hanging, and black should give this pawn like play something like bishop e6, queen c7, and play endgame without a pawn. Because c6 move is not possible after knight c3, because of this line they lose, instead of a pawn they lose their knight. So after d5, long castle, rook e8 is simply losing a pawn after knight d5, and if they here play c6, protecting the d5 pawn, after e5, cd5, we play queen d4, strong move. Queen staying on d4, very strong. He's blocking the d5 pawn, he's attacking d5 pawn, and most importantly, next moves are f3, g4, h4, g5. After knight moves from f6, d5 pawn will be free, and after this g5, the attack is also very strong. So here white has big advantage. This was d5 move. If instead of d5, black plays rook e8, then long castle. Now after c6, playing with idea c6, d5, we play queen d4. The same. D7 pawn is very weak, d6 is impossible, we'll take it, and if d5 we get the same position, e5, cd5, and f3 with g4, with our very strong queen on d4. If after rook e8, long castle, black plays d6, then we go f3. As I mentioned already, the h6 pawn is not there, it should be on h7. Even this position, it will be very good for us, our attack is much stronger. But with the pawn on h6, it's even worse for black. Just g4, h4, g5, and we have very strong attack. So guys, this is all after knight d4. Don't mess up anything, don't play queen d3 and get knight b3, bishop f2, and don't take knight d4, bishop d4, and now play queen d2, because bishop c3 and knight e4 tactic. After knight d4, we play immediately queen d2, knight b3, a b3, and this position. After h6, when black avoid finally this pin, bishop h4 was not possible because of knight e4, well, we play bishop e3 move. And after long castle, h6 pawn is not there. We play f3, g4, and go for attack. Now let's go to the bishop g5, h6 main line. In the previous video we finished with a knight d4 move. We play here queen d2, knight b3, a b3, and after h6, bishop e3, queen e3, we got better position. Now let's go to the main line. After bishop g5, black plays h6. This is much better for them. h6, of course, we don't give this bishop, bishop h4 we play, and now black plays a5. The difference is that when they played a5 immediately instead of h6, we had knight d5 move. However, after bishop h4, h6, bishop h4, a5, now knight d5 move is not so good because of g5 move. What is here? Yeah, black is weakening their king, but after bishop g3, we lose a piece. After knight d5, we cannot take the knight because rook e8, and we lose the queen. If after knight d5, g5, at first we take knight b6, then cb6, bishop g3, and knight e4, strong move. And again, we cannot play queen e4 because of rook e8. After knight d5, g5, if you play knight f6, queen f6, bishop g3, then queen b2, the pawn is hanging, and we never can do a long castle move. So because of this, now bishop h6, bishop h4, a5 move is possible. We don't have knight d5 move. After a5, however, we play a4. Now the same thing, knight d5 and long castle are coming, so black plays knight d4, their move. The difference to the previous line, it was now we are playing queen d3. What's the difference? If you play now queen d2, then after knight b3, cb3, bishop is on h4, not on g5 as it was in the previous line when the g5 bishop was protected. So now black has knight e4 move. Again, the same tactic. Now both our pieces are hanging, and if bishop d2, then knight d2, bishop c7, knight b3, and our rook on a1 is hanging. Bishop b6, knight a1, and knight successfully go to b3 or c2. We cannot catch this knight. So after knight d4, we cannot play also knight d4, bishop d4, queen d2, the same tactic, bishop c3, queen c3, and knight e4. Now queen and bishop is hanging, bishop d8, knight c3, same thing, bishop c8, bishop c7, and rook e8, this very unpleasant check. After king d2, knight e4, we lose, because as in the previous video, there is no good place for our king. Wherever we go, there are problems, like king c1 is the only place not to give this rook with check, so king c1, but then knight f2, rook g1, rook e1, and we lose. So, after knight d4, we play here queen d3. Let's go back for a moment to the previous line to make everything clear. When black played after bishop g5, knight d4 immediately, we played here queen d2. As now knight b3, a b3, knight e4 is not working because of our bishop on g5. However, if our bishop was on h4, knight e4 would work. So now after h6 we didn't play bishop h4, knight e4 would be possible. And the same way, after knight d4 we couldn't play knight queen d3 because knight b3, a b3 and bishop f2 check. However, if our bishop was on h4, bishop f2 move would be not possible. So after h6, bishop h4, a5, a4, knight d4, here we play not queen d2 because of the tactic. So we play queen d3. And now comparing to the previous line, after knight b3, cb3, black cannot play bishop f2 because we simply take the bishop. Bishop ours is on h4. So coming back to this position, knight d4, queen d3, knight b3, cb3. At first glance it seems that black crashed white pawn structure. However, after long castle, white king gonna be very safe there. Especially after long castle, imagine king b1, king a2, he covered by his own pawns. Additionally, after long castle, somewhere white queen goes to d2 or c2, opening the rook on d1 and opening the bishop of f1, who stands on c4 very comfortably. While white king is on b1 or a2, very safe, black king on g8 is not safe, and also there is additional pin, which is making big headache for black. So, after knight b3, cb3, black plays here c6. This is the main line. There was a game where c6 is the idea with d5, to play d5 move. There was a game, Backrot against Carlsen has played rook e8, but after long castle, d6, queen c2, he got problems. Bishop is going to c4, so in the game was played bishop d7, bishop c4, bishop e6, Backrot played, he wanted to change these bishops. Carlsen is playing rook ag1. Continuing pressure, now with bishop c4, then bc4, now knight d5 is coming. And if black plays some move c6, avoiding this knight d5 move, then e5 is possible because of this pin, black loses a piece. So after bishop e6, rook ag1, Backrot played queen e7. But now e5, d5, this is pin, so black should take here, rook e5, and now another pin. One pin here, another pin is here, so black should weaken their position. Backrot played queen f8, but after bishop f6, gf6, rook e2, these pawns are very weak, opponent king is open, and after rook e2, white has big advantage, and Carlsen won. So after knight b3, cb3, c6 is the main line. Black wants to play c6, d5. Otherwise, remember, if they do some moves like d6, our plan is easy. We do long castle with next move queen c2, now knight d5 may be possible, or bishop c4, and because of this pin, black has problems. Also, if somewhere black plays g5, it's bad for them, because after bishop g3, king on g8 is very weak, we continue our attack h4, or somewhere, especially when there is a pin here with e5 move. Queen is going most of the time to c2 or d2, opening the bishop on f1, which goes to c4, d3, and our attack is very strong here. So after knight b3, cb3, black plays c6, this is the main line, they want to play d5. So long castle and d5. There was a game, my student Narayanan, Grandmaster, very talented guy from India. Here he played queen e7 against another strong Grandmaster, Amin Bassem, Dr. Amin, and after queen e7 he got problems. After king b1, my student wanted to solve this problem of the pin with playing bishop c7 and bringing him to bishop e5. But now Amin played strong move, bishop g3. Yeah, white get off from this pin, but after bishop g3, hg3, now d7 pawn is there. So now d5 is not possible, d6 is not possible. Well, d5 is possible, but it's not so good. d6 is most importantly not possible. Next move, white is going to queen d6, and after changing the queens, let's imagine some move like rook d8, queen d6, rook d6. This is very bad ending for black, because bishop on c8 is there, and if black plays some move like knight e8 and trying to play d6 opening it, now d6 pawn is weak, and after bishop c4, rook hd1, there is a big pressure on black position. After bishop g3, hg3, d5, my student played d5 here, yeah, but after e5, c5, didn't take the d5 pawn, after which there would be easier game for black, like knight d5, queen d5, queen bishop e6. He played very unpleasant move for black, queen d4. This is a very strong move, similar to the previous video with h6 line. queen d4 is staying there very strong, f3, g4 is coming now, and it was so unpleasant position that from here it was hard for us after the game with my student to find somewhere where he could save the game. It was so unpleasant position. And by the way, because of his game, I understood that is all line. It's very dangerous for black, and black should play very carefully to get normal position. However, ourselves we failed to find that line, how to play the best for black. So let's come back to the theory. c6, long castle, d5. This is the main line that the theory go instead of queen e7 as played my student. So long castle, d5. Here there are two good ways for white. The first one is taking ed5, cd5 and playing queen c2. Now with queen c2 we opened our rook on d1, d5 pawn is hanging and we want to take on d5. Also we opened our bishop on f1. Black plays bishop e6, protecting the d5 pawn, but now we take bishop knight d5. Bishop f6 is also possible, bishop f6, queen f6, knight d5, but it's better knight d5 immediately. There is two pins here, and after bishop d5, now to take bishop f6. The thing here, if black don't take with queen f6 and give this bishop immediately and play gf6, then after bishop c4 because of this pin, anyways they lose the bishop on d5 and get even worse position because of their open king. So bishop f6, queen f6 they should play, rook d5. Now we got a pawn, yeah, we are losing the f2 pawn, but there is more important factors about which I will tell you soon. Now rook a8, we have bishop c4, we don't lose a queen. So after rook d5, black has an unpleasant choice. They should go whether bishop f2, and after rook f5, they are lucky they are not losing their bishop. Bishop f2, bishop e3 check they have, king b1, but then when queen goes somewhere, bishop c4, and now rook hf1 is coming and putting big pressure on f7 pawn. So there is opposite bishop colors middle game, and as we know, when there is opposite bishop middle game, it's important who is attacking there. And as we can notice, our king on b1 is much safe. King stays on b1 or a2 and there is no way for black to attack this king. However, our opponent, king on g8, feels not comfortable. After rook hf1, we put pressure on f7. Also b7 pawn may be weak, somewhere we may play rook b5. But most of the time we play just rook hf1. If black somehow protect the f7 pawns, then we can go g4, h4, g5 starting attack, and there is very unpleasant position for black. So after rook d5, it's better for black to take queen f2, change the queen. However, after bishop c4, queen c2, king c2, this ending is also very unpleasant. It looks like the pawns are equal, there are opposite colored bishop, and true, like opposite colored bishop, even some side is pawn down, it's true, but not in this case. There are rooks. Yeah, if we change now two rooks, if we take from the position all four rooks, yeah, it may be draw. However, these rooks are making big trouble for black. The thing here is that b7 and f7 pawns are very weak. White next move is rook d7 and getting one of them, rook d7, rook hf1 is coming, or rook b5 and immediately taking the b7 pawn. So now this bishop on c4 is very strong. He has a place where rooks cannot make troubles for him. He is very comfortably protected with his b3 pawn. However, it's hard to find a good place for bishop on b6. If the position was here, bishop was on c5 and the pawn on b7 was on b6, it would be a totally different story. And if black now tried to change these rooks, playing like rook d8, rook hd1, now rook d7 is coming, or rook b5, and if black take rook d5, rook d5, rook d8, trying to change these rooks, after rook b5, rook d6, it seems that everything is protected, rook d6 black should play, otherwise after bishop goes somewhere, they lose the b7 pawn, rook d6, and while it looks like that everything is protected, the position of black is very, very bad, because of b4 move. We are crashing here and we want to take ba5, and after a b4, instead of taking rook b4, we play here king b3 strong move. Next moves are easy, king b4, a5 is coming, and it's very hard to do something for black. After king b4, a5, they lose the b7 pawn, this a and b pawn together would go to queen, and black has no defense here. If bishop moves somewhere, they lose the b7 pawn, and rook cannot do anything because he's protecting the b6 bishop. So this ending is also very unpleasant. Let's go one more time. After long castle, d5, ed5, cd5, queen c2. We want to take d5, bishop e6, knight d5. Bishop d5, bishop f6. Gf6, bishop c4. Anyway, they lose the piece. And after queen f6, rook d5, this opposite bishop color, middle game or end game. In both cases, black has very bad position, and white has good chances to win the game without any risk. it's win or draw. It's two result game, which is very, very good for us. And when we were analyzing the position along castle d5, e5, cd5, queen c2 with GM Sam, we find some complicated lines for black where they could play better, but this everything is complicated, so I keep this for advanced video course for our pro members. And additionally, after d5 we found even better move, it's novelty. I will tell you here, queen c2 move, it's very strong novelty, and it's making even more problems for black. However, all this everything I keep for advanced video course for pro members. You don't need go more than this. This everything is enough to have better positions during your games. So the important thing after bishop g5 here is that after knight d4, immediately white goes queen d2. The thing here is when the bishop on g5, queens go to d2. However, after h6, bishop h4, a5, a4, knight d4, queens goes to d3. Just remember these things. Always check if there is possible knight e4 move. If knight e4 move, we avoid this tactic. We get a better position. Just remember this. You have the video here and also the PGN file I will add to this video. So always you can check it if you forget something. So with this, we finished the second section with bishop c5 move. We play knight b3, bishop b6, knight c3, and remember the queen e2 idea. It's very pleasure position for white, and I'm sure, like all my students, you will also enjoy this game and will have very good results. So now let's move to the next section. After e4, knight d4, blacks play knight f6. Let's go there and see what is going on there. Hey guys, I decided before jumping to knight f6 move to create a short video with summing up all these bishop c5 move, so anytime you forget, you can quickly remember everything here. So after bishop c5, we play knight b3, bishop b6, knight c3. Now black has two choices to develop their knight on g8 through f6 or e7. However, if they want to develop their knight on e7, it's better to start with the d6 move and then go to knight g7, because after knight g7 we have better move bishop g5 and play queen d2. So d6 is much better for black because now bishop g5 move we have not. So we play queen e2 move. Remember this one with next move bishop e3, knight g7, bishop e3. Castle, long castle, and we are going to f4, h3, g4 attack. So the best move here is f5 for black, and we play f4, the Giris and Negis games, fe4, g3, and we have better position after bishop g2. We anyway gained back this e4 pawn with better position. This was d6 move. We play queen e2. The main line after knight c3 is knight f6. We play queen e2 move. Now next move bishop e3 is coming, and if black plays castle, then we don't play bishop e3, because after bishop e3 black has this d5 move. But after castle we play bishop g5. Then black has two choices. First one was knight d4, we played here queen d2. Knight b3, a b3, remember this moment, queen on d2, not on d3. Because now knight e4 is not possible. Knight e4 was possible when the bishop was on h4. Queen d2, sorry, queen d2, and after h6, we don't go bishop h6 because of knight e4 move, we play bishop e3 move. And after bishop e3, queen e3, d5, we played a long castle, c6, we took, and queen d4 this position with f3, g4, h4. After bishop g5, when black plays h6, bishop h4, a5, this is better for blacks than immediately knight d4, a5, a4, knight d4, queen d3 now we play. Queen d2 we cannot play because of knight b3 and knight e4. So queen d3, knight b3, and with a5, a4, including this move, they forced us to take the b3 knight with c pawn. However, it's not so bad. First of all, after a long castle, king is going to b1 or a2. These things are very safe, and there is a good place for our queen to go is c2. And after, after queen c2, rook d1 is opened and bishop on f1. After d5, we took here and queen c2, bishop e6. We get our opposite bishop color ending or middle game, where in both sides we have a better game and two result game, draw or win. It's so pleasant to play such a position. This is all, guys, after bishop c5. Sometimes you can come back to this video and see do you remember everything. And looking at this video, if you feel okay in some moment I don't remember exact what, go to previous video and find everything is there. Also you can find everything in PGN files. Okay, now let's move to knight f6 section. Hello Chessmood family! We finished here already with bishop c5 move, and now it's turn to go to the next main line, knight f6. After knight f6, in the theory, white has two main continuation. First is taking on c6, and the second one is playing knight c3, bishop b4, and long theory there. After knight f6, our recommendation is to take on c6. Here, what we will look in this section. First we will see why this d6 is not a good move and why the main line is bc6. e5 we play here, and now why knight d5 is not good move and why queen e7 is the main line. And after queen e7, queen e2, knight d5, this is the main position after knight c6, bc6, e5, queen e7, queen e2, knight d5, and in this position, instead of the main line c4, which is played more than 5,000 games in the database, and after bishop a6 there is a long theory, white plays b3, and here black has lots of moves like g6, long castle, queen h4, g5, knight b6, f6, and this is long big theory. However, I have a good news for you. Instead of this c4 move that we should learn a lot of things here, after knight d5 we are going to show you a cool, interesting, new and trendy move, h4, which is very interesting. And another good thing is that after h4 in the theory there is just 60 games, and almost all of them are played with true grandmaster. This is very trendy and new lane in Scotch. And step by step, from knight f6 I will in this section explain why knight c6 not dc6, why bc6, and after e5 why knight d5 is bad move, why like at first play queen e7, queen e2, then knight d5, and finally we will come to this h4 move. I will step by step explain the ideas, what's going on here, show you some games, and where is going the directions of the theory now, and how playable and interesting position is this. So stay tuned, we go here step by step from here, knight f6, knight c6. Let's go. So we go. After knight c6, as I said, dc6 is not a good move, bc6 is the best. So why not dc6? The thing here is that after queen d8, king d8, this endgame, after move f3 or knight c3, white has advantage. Why? In this video I will explain this everything. It's gonna be a bit a long video. However, looking carefully, you will grow up not only just understanding this position, but will grow your skills, your understanding of chess will go to next level. So be careful, I will try as clear as possible to explain why this position is good for white, and also we will compare this position with Berlin endgame. As some of you who know theory, you can ask what's the difference between this position and Berlin endgame, which occurs after Ruy Lopez, bishop b5, knight f6, castle, knight e4, d4, take, and this endgame. What is the difference? Main difference here is that the pawn is on e5, not on e4. Why? Here in this video I will explain this. Together we will go step by step to see what's the differences and what's going on here in this ending. The first thing here why this ending is better for white is because if we change now all the pieces and let them pawn ending, king against king, king 7 pawns against king 7 pawns, the position is lost for black. Now we will go and see why. And because of the fact that the pawn ending is lost for black, every time they should make concessions, avoiding the pieces change. So before going to this position, first of all we should understand why the pawn ending is lost. Why also it's important to understand why the pawn ending is lost, because let's imagine there is a rook endgame. This is the position, I took all the pieces and I led the rooks. Here is the thing that if, of course there is a d open line, so the fight gonna be there. After rook d1, some moves, white wants to play rook d2, rook d8, rook d1, and black cannot fight for this line, because after rook a8, rook d8, rook d8, rook d1, they cannot take rook d1, now we will see why, and so they should make concession going rook somewhere and giving up the d line. So first of all, let's understand why the pawn ending is lost for black. The thing here is the difference between pawn structure. While these 4 pawns can make a postpawn against these 3, black's 4 pawns cannot make a postpawn against these 3. If you know it, it's fine, and if no, I will explain it here. Let's assume we remove the kings, as on ChessBase I cannot remove the kings, the settings not let me. I will just take them to queenside and show everything in queenside, and then I will take the kings to queenside and show what's going on queenside. So at first let's see how these 4 pawns make a postpawn against these 3. Just imagine that there are no kings, and let's assume the position is without kings, and see how these 4 pawns are making a postpawn against these 3. So we are going f4, next moves are g4, it's maybe even h4, and then e5, f5, and then e6. Also, it's possible after e4 immediately go e5, f5 and make a postpone, and if after e5 black plays g6, then g4 is coming, g4, f5. So let's say black is playing here h5, not letting us to do it. We don't do a mistake with playing h3 move. h3 want to play g4, however after h3, h4, we cannot make a postpone anymore. g4 of course is not possible because hg3, and if you play e5 then g6, stopping here, not letting us to play f5. And the same, if you play f5, f6. However, after h4, f4, h5, we play g3 at first, and then next move h3. So I just make a move with king so I can move on the board for white pieces. h3 we go g4, and then e5 and f5. If not g6, no difference, king a, just f5 and e6. So it's very easy to make a postpone. It is 4 pawns against 3. Now let's go and see why these 4 pawns cannot make a postpone against these 3. I took the kings to the king side. Just imagine there are not kings and see what's going on. These 4 pawns against these 3. The thing here, if we let black to do everything what they want and just stay here, black will make a postpone. The thing here is this is a famous position, this 3 against this 3. When it's black to move, there is a b3 strong move, and black is getting a postpone. The thing here is if we take with c pawn, they play a3 strong move. And after b8 they play c3. Similarly is if after b3 we take it with a pawn, then c3, and after bc3, a3, and again postpone. The thing here is that if there was here a white to move, and there was not pawn on c7 after b3, this is the only move that is making a draw. If there was not pawn on c7, it would be draw, because stopping here with otherwise with playing c3 is not possible because of a3. And again, black is making a postpone, and the same if a3 then c3. However, when there is a pawn on c7, b3 is not saving the game, because black just take it, and now c7 pawn do his job. c5, c4, and black made a postpone and won. It's everything we speak about when we imagined that there is not kings. So here is the plan of black. They are going a5, b5, a4, c5, b4, c4, and then make postpone. But we stop here with easy way. This 4 pawn against this 3, remember it cannot, because of we are waiting with putting our pawns on c3 and a3. And now just waiting. Black cannot do anything. Even if they play c4 and bring another their pawn and play b4 or a4 then b4, no difference. The thing here, we don't touch this pawn. If you take, of course, now 3 against 2 and they make the postpone. But we just stay here, we just play king h1, and black cannot do anything. If take, it's fine, and no way for black. Take b8, we take the pawn, b3 it's close, nothing's there. And if black plays a4, and then b4 is the same, or b4 then a4, again we don't take the pawn. Yeah, it's free, but we cannot take the pawn, because after c bit4, take, and c3, a3, or a3, and then c3. So with just taking the pawns c3 and a3, these 4 pawns cannot make a postpone against these 3, because these 2 pawns are double pawns. This is the difference of all pawn ending, when these 4 pawns cannot make a postpone against these 3, while our 4 pawns can make a postpone against these 3, because we don't have a doubled pawn. After a5, when black is coming, there is also another ways for white to stop. It was just the easiest illustration with c3 and a3, or a3 with c3. We can also play here move a4. Just after b5, don't take on b5, because after ab5, cb5, now again 3 pawns gonna be against 2, and the thing here is black doesn't have the double pawn. So we just wait here by doing b3 move, and everything is fine. If take, fine, no way to make here a postpone. And if black plays some b4, again no way for them, c4, just now we take the pawn. Otherwise, if we wait, c5 now is coming. c5, c4, and again they made a postpone. So after c4 we can just take it, and again no way for black to make a postpone here. After a4, if black tries to play c5 and c6, here again we just stay here. Now many moves are doing draw. We can play here moves like c4, giving another pawn here, and the things that if black take here, and again 3 double pawn, and no way for them triple double pawn, and no way for black to get a postpone. c3 we just simply take it, no way, and the same is after ba4, no difference. Just here we don't play b3 move, because after b3 c4 now black get a pass pawn, because now after cb3 it's gonna be 3 pawns against 2 and a pass pawn, and here they took another pawn. So here moves c3 was also doing draw c4, king g1 before, but again we don't touch here king h1. So against these 4 pawns there are many ways for stopping this. Just the easiest one for illustration I showed is c3 and a3, while our 4 against these 3 makes a pass pawn. Now let's go back to our position with pawn ending, the starting position. So what's the plan of white? We make a pass pawn here in the queen side with these 4 pawns against these 3, and pushing with this pass pawn just alone cannot win. But one moment we are giving our pass pawn and our king is then going and grabbing our opponent pawns. So let's see this on illustration. So let's say black is waiting there, king e6, g5 don't give anything, just g3, and again f4 is coming. So king e6, f4, h5 I tried, h3 now also fine, because h4 doesn't give anything to black, king f3, king g4, and we grab the pawn. So f4, h5, g3, this is also good, g3, g6, h3, we go to g4, king f6, g4, h4, hg4, g5 I played for black. If black played king d6, easier for white, just g5, black waits here, some moment f5, and we got our post pawn here, take, and then this is again winning this position. So g5, we will get something similar, e5, king e6, just waiting there. Now we are doing some moves until the moves of black is finished and they move back to king e7. Some b5, king f4, no matter, we just wait him. And finally, sooner or less, they play king e7, king f5. Again, let's say they are trying to make some moves here. We are stopping here everything. And then going to g5, making a pass pawn finally. King d7 going, e6, and going, as I said, king is going finally, giving this pass pawn, because king cannot come and protect here because of the g pawn. So king 1 goes there, king d6, and grabbing here everything. It was just an example of this position. The plan is easy for us. Again, just creating post pawn here, giving the post pawn to our opponent, and with king going and crushing these 4 pawns. So now let's go back and see what's the difference with Berlin endgame. It's the same structure. The main thing here is that the pawn is on e5, which is a weak. If I say to you in this middle game that e5 pawn is weak, it would be curious for you how this e5 pawn can be weak. But on just that rook ending illustration, it's very easy to see. Let's go there, I will show you it. Let's say the same rook endgame, but now instead of e4, the pawn is on e5. Now if we try to change the rooks, suddenly after rook d1, instead of winning as it was in the previous one when the pawn was in e4, now suddenly we are losing it. Because after rook d1, king d1, e5 pawn is losing, after king e6, f4, and king f5, and g5. Next move g5 is coming, and if we take the pawn, they take. Next move king f5, king e5, or even more simple way, rook d1, king d1, g5 at first, with move king e6. Now g3 doesn't give anything, black plays king f6, f4, and grab the f4 pawns, then the e5 pawn, or g3 play g4, stopping here, and then next move is playing king e6. So here it was a nice example to understand the difference why the e5 pawn is not good there. It's much better for us when it's on e4. And even in rook endings here, it could be possible for black to play, let's say, g5 now, and then next move to play king e6, and our e5 pawns is making troubles for us. Another difference between the position, this ending, when the pawn is on e4, and the Berlin endgame, which is very popular, is that also black pieces are placed very well. Their knight on f8 is very strong, bishop is coming to e6, and this e5 pawn all the time making us trouble. However, after Scotch, knight c6, d6, queen d8, king d8, our pawn is on e4, and we never play e5 here. As you saw, the pawn should be here. It's very important for us in upcoming more deeply endings when we change more pieces. So here we simply play f3 or knight c3, protecting it, but just not playing e5 move. So again, coming and speaking about this position, as you saw, the thing here is that with changing piece by piece, advantage of white is becoming bigger, because the pawn ending is lost for black. Here is that everything. Well, now you can understand why I spent so much time explaining the pawn opening, why it is lost, why these 4 pawns against these 3 makes a pass pawn, while our opponent's pawns 4 against these 3 doesn't make pass pawn. So I have a game for you which illustrates this everything. So let's go, I will comment it and we will understand this position better. I have one very interesting game for you, which is a good example of the structure that we discussed after DC6. It was a simple game. I played it just 1 month ago against a young lady who after DC6 showed her interest to play endgame. Exact that period I was preparing material for this video course, and I thought it may be a good example to include it here. And indeed, the game was really interesting, so I decided to include it here, and I'm going to comment it as clear as possible to help you understand this structure deeper. So I changed the queen, knight c3, bishop b4. Black wants to damage my structure after bishop c3 move, so I'm not letting it to do it. Bishop d2, king e7 was played, bishop c3, don't give anything to black, bishop c3, e4 pawn is not free. After knight e4, I will take my opponent's g7 pawn, and now additionally to the factor mentioned, this 4 against my 3, now my 3 is against my opponent's 2, and still I can make a pass pawn, but now additionally of this factor I have 2 bishop advantage, which is not good for black. So she played king e7, f3, making the structure strong, bishop e6, a3, bishop c5, black doesn't want to give their 2 bishop, so bishop c5, bishop f4, attacking the c7 pawn. If now bishop d6, it's black is losing a piece after e5 move, and if bishop b6, then knight a4, and black is losing their knight, which is good for me. I will have a 2 bishop advantage. After bishop a5, I have b4 move. So after bishop f4, she played rook ac8. Bishop d3, rook hd8, king e2, king is staying in the center, as this is just endgame, no reason to go to long hassle, so king e2, rook d7. And now, as we discussed, as many pieces we change is better for us, so I am starting my plan. Bishop e3, at first changing the bishops, then rook cd8, rook ad1, a6. Now I'm ready to change the rooks also. My opponent is changing them, rook d1, rook d1, rook d1, knight d1. I remember even during the game she offered me a draw. She probably thought that I'm going to change now all pieces and agree a draw. I'm like gentleman. However, she didn't know that I'm preparing a video course, so of course I declined an offer and I continued the game. In real, the black position is very bad because of the mentioned factor that this 4 pawn is making a pass pawn against this